Hello, Attila.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome back.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Torn, our Vulgo podcast. My name is Attila Gunsey.
My name is Cameron Rose-Smith.
And today is all on you, mate.
Me. I'll take this.
We will take a look at Japanese
film.
We've
got two parts.
Okay.
2 parts of this. Hopefully 2 parts. Let's see how long this goes. I've timed it, and hopefully we can get this in the time allotted. Maybe it'll leak to a 2.5, 3.
We'll
see. Let's go. Okay. We opened up with what looks to be a 30 seconds of a European scene, okay? People are going about their everyday lives, but why would we do this if we're talking about Japanese film, Attila?
Because maybe these are the people that they left the audience when we performed something.
That's correct, Attila. This is documented footage of people angry at our performances.
It's these guys again.
These guys,
Let's just leave this.
Get it out.
The theatre.
Well, if you were in Japan, living in Osaka on 15th of February 1897, and you stopped by.
Sorry, I'm just going to turn
the aircon.
AC.
Better, thank you for that. If you stopped by the Nanchi and Bujo Theatre, this would probably have been the first exposure, pun intended, to moving pictures. Okay. This was shot or projected on a device called a cinematograph, and this was by the Lumiere brothers. Okay, this thing was
is it a camera?
It's pretty much it's all singing, all dancing, bit of kit. When it arrived, it did a lot. It did develop your film, it shot your film, and it projected your film. It was about 7 kg. It was pretty portable, and it was kind of a bit of a technological marvel at the time. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, so we did it all.
By the way, Lumiere brothers, are they the one who created the moon with the...
No, that's Matthew... What's his name? He's a French guy. You've tested me. What's his name? We'll come back. The trip to the moon,
I'm
right?
going to take a look.
Have a look while I'm talking this out. But no, not him. So this device, pretty impressive as it was... it would hold 50 to 60 foot of film. Georges Millet. Georges Millet?
Yes.
Got it. Good. It would hold 50 to 60 foot of film. Self-encased. It had its own gauge of film, so which gave it its own brand, but it also limited it, right? So to give you an idea, like 50 foot, 1 foot of film is 1 second of shooting time. Okay, so you could shoot like a minute, 60 seconds. Which at the time was pretty impressive. However,
that was the Canon and Nikon at the time.
Well, I have put it in this terms, right? Because a year later, so people come and watch this footage, right? Okay, not just this. It was about an hour long and multiple like shots of European Western culture happening and little documentary style, happenings, right? Okay, these are not films. These are just I'm going to put my camera in front of a pedestrian and watch everyday life sort of thing, right? But when people saw this, they were obviously shocked. This is amazing. What is this?
Probably they were scared. Oh my God, the train is coming towards me. Oh
well,
my God.
There is that famous story about the train. Yeah. I don't think people went completely nuts on it, but yes, people were impressed. A year later, you then had imports of 2 different types of cameras. One called the British Baxter and Ray cinematograph, and then a French camera called the French Chrono Gourmand camera. Now these were a little bit more heavy, a little bit more industrial, but a bit more practical. They used 35mm film, which became the industrial standard of the time. You could feed more film into them to project, which just basically made them more practical and useful, even though they were heavier. And this is what people started to use. And so we need to shout out to a guy called Shiro Asano, who used to use the British Baxter to shoot some of the first domestic scenes of Tokyo life, basically. He went around and shot, all the districts of Tokyo, geisha, tea house, all this kind of stuff. However, unfortunately for this man, none of his work exists any longer. And that goes along with 90% of Japanese silent film. Pretty much most of it's lost or gone. And we can't go too deeply into it. I mean, these are, you can go deeply into these particular reasons, but to give you like an overview of basically what happened to this film, and if you do find any in your shed
Let's go for a treasure hunt.
Yeah, send it to the Japanese government because I'm pretty sure they'll be very happy about it. So give you a couple of sort of examples of what happened through the 20th century. First one was the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923. Okay, so this was a massive 7.9 magnitude earthquake that killed over 100,000 people.
Oh.
Yeah, not great. And the resulting firestorms that came out of this basically ripped through Tokyo and Yokohama and, tore through all the camera shops, production warehouses, film vaults. It did a lot of damage and everything went to ash, basically. So, and that was 1923. By that time, there was this whole stock of film that had been made, and it's now just ashes. Ashes and dust, Spartacus? Maximus? Different film. Then we had, of course, World War II. Very famous. Just generally a lot of fire bombings and destruction going on there. Not to mention the 2 nuclear bombs. And then you had generally what the film was made of, which is cellulose nitrate, which is notoriously flammable. And if it's not taken care of, it turns to goo. It just turns to mush. And at the time, people didn't really see these pieces as like cultural relics. It was more like, oh, these are fun. Like fun little minute films or fun minute films and things like that.
Ah, so they didn't
store them well.
They didn't store them well.
Yeah. So you have people who probably had them in a shed somewhere, and then they've just turned to sludge, and that's that. So a lot of this stuff is gone. So the stuff that we do have,
that's a shame.
It is a shame. Yeah, but the stuff we do have, we should be obviously super happy about. One of the earliest examples of Japanese film that we have is 1899, Momi Jigari, which is maple leaf viewing, by a contemporary of Asano, a guy called Shibata. Now, this features 2 of the most legendary kabuki actors of the Meiji era.
Oh, kabuki!
Kabuki! So this would be a guy called Ichikawa Danjuro, the 9th, and Onoe Kukugoro, the 5th.
So as a reminder,
go on.
Ishigaki Danjuro is one of the most famous kabuki
He's a big deal.
actor
Yeah.
at the time.
Big deal.
So, and the Danjuro, I don't know. I'm a little bit confused. The surname or the first name comes first?
I think the surname comes first.
The surname comes first, right?
But I'm thinking I'm westernizing this.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
If you go and see a kabuki play, you might come across with an actor whose name is the same.
As we were talking, it's family sort of legacy.
They are passing, not just family, they are just passing down the name.
Exactly, right. So this is why they're the 9th and the 5th. So Danjuro was playing the Onagata in this scene, Princess Sarashina.
Focusing on female characters.
That's right. And Sarashina was secretly a mountain demon in disguise, and Kikugara was the brave samurai warrior in this little clip we have. Now, both of them agreed to be filmed, but I believe it was Danjuro who basically was a bit like, you can do it, but I don't feel like this captures the essence of kabuki. It's fine, but you can only...
And he was right.
And he was right, quite frankly.
Because you need to be there.
You do need
to be there. It's a live performance.
Yeah.
Piece.
You do need to be there. And if you... and they basically agreed to doing it, but you can only show it and once they die. And that's what happened. So in 1903, this was then viewed to the public.
They made a deal.
They made a deal. They said, you could do this, but...
Wow.
Yeah, we die first, and then you can show it. And they did. Some people loved it.
Nice.
Yeah, because they were so well loved.
Nice way to build a legacy.
Very nice way to build a legacy.
I'm gone, but you can see me for one more time.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's very nice.
Yeah. And reports were that people were in tears watching them.
Of course.
Do this.
Yeah.
So, thus begins Japan's journey into cinema. Okay.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Now, up until 1908, most films were simply recordings of domestic life, tea ceremonies, geisha dancing, and of course, recordings of no and kabuki. Okay, so the camera, and in these cases, you would just basically set up a camera, as you were an audience member watching the kabuki performance. Okay, now here we have to introduce our man, a guy called Shozo Makino, who is the father of filmmaking.
What's his name?
Shozo Makino. Don't you worry, I got this.
You practiced
I
as
did
well.
practice. I practiced as well. Yeah. I would say he's the daddy of Shozo, of filmmaking, Shozo Makino.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, he's the daddy. Oh, yeah.
So, the Spielberg
Yeah.
of
I mean,
Japanese
you know,
or
bigger.
Martin Scorsese.
He was compared to, in his day, to a guy called D.W. Griffith. D.W. Griffith. And he's the guy, the American guy, director, very obviously influential but very controversial figure who made the film, what is it called? Birth of a Nation, which is a very racist film. A lot of Ku Klux Klan heavy stuff in there.
Oh, don't do that.
No, don't do that.
Don't
But
do that.
again, we'll talk about this when we get to America. But it's but either way, as controversial as it is, it was incredibly influential. Makino was nicknamed by D.W. Griffith as Makino Griffith, and apparently Shozo said, "Great, I love that." Interesting. Yeah. So we love that. Now, just to give you a bit of backstory on Makino, he was actually, his mother ran a theatre, and he managed that theatre. So he comes from a background where he was seeing all this
theatre background.
Yeah,
Yes,
theatre background.
yeah,
He saw all
yeah.
of this happening. Once he got his hand on a camera, the reason why we would call him the daddy of filmmaking is that he, instead of like, you know, just sticking to the theatre space, he began to bring out all of this equipment on site. So he would take all those stories, all those kabuki stories, all those traditional sort of well-known plays, and go, "Yeah, cool, nice, that's the theatre, but I'm going to take it on location."
Oh wow! Okay,
Yeah,
that's a great invention.
it's a great So he pushed that forward. Now, his
Did
first.
he make the camera move as well, or set changes?
So
or
no.
Any...
So this is where we go from what we would call kuyugeki, which would be old drama, and jidaigeki. Now, just a quick explainer on kugeki and jidaigeki. Kugeki refers to a traditional, highly stylized, old-school theatre and early films heavily rooted in kabuki traditions, right? Where all roles were still played by men. So he was bringing his invention, his initiative was to bring it out into the open space. He was still heavily rooted in that kabuki tradition. So all of the acting is heavily theatrical. The camera doesn't really... There's a lot of long takes, for example. There's not like a lot of cutting and dynamism that we might expect from cinema.
Yeah.
Whereas jidaigeki, which we'll talk about, encompasses a broader, more modern genre of period dramas set before the Meiji Restoration, blah, 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 featuring women in acting roles.
But the question is, sorry to interrupt you,
please.
because kabuki is famous for scene changes.
Well, I mean, it would change scenes. So you'd have different parts of, like, for example, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
We had his first film, which was Honoji Kasen. And this was filmed on site in Kyoto in a temple. And, you know, that story would obviously take place in this temple. But yes, there would be scene changes, right? In the sense that as a film would. So you'd change location. That kind of thing, right?
Okay.
But you'd still have the very theatrical, stylized fight scenes and movements. That film, however, is lost. That film we cannot see anymore. I know. It's very troubling. This, but what we do have is a very important film from 1910. That film was from 1908. This film, which is Chusengura, 1910. And Chusengura just is a term used for any written or theatrical performance about the story of the 47 loyal Ronin. So we'll see this as we go through this episode and for the next episode as well.
Okay.
It's a very important story. What we do have on this is about 3 minutes of survived footage.
Only 3 minutes?
Only 3 minutes, yep. Yeah. But you can watch it on YouTube. You can go check that out. And we should also mention...
Are we gonna leave the link?
We'll leave the link below.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
we can
put a bunch of links down there. We should also mention one actor called Matsunosuke Onoe. Yes,
I think you did a good job. I think so.
Matsunosuke Onoe, and he is the father of cinema acting, or indeed the daddy of cinema acting. And he basically worked alongside Makino throughout his whole career, made hundreds and hundreds of films with each other. So they were a big partnership.
So he is more like the Charlie Chaplin of Japanese theatre.
That's right. Do you know what? We're going to mention Charlie Chaplin again later.
Really?
Yeah, we are. I'll leave that till the end if I can get there in time. So rather than relying on traditional complex stage plays of the era, Makino combined elements of kabuki with fast-paced choreographed swordplay. The style helped establish Kyugeki, the classical period drama, and paved the way for modern Jidaigeki. Okay, so that was his big impact for film.
I see.
So now we're going to fast forward a little. We're going to go to the 1920s, right?
Silent era.
We're still in the silent era. And by this time, Japanese film had begun to change, though, right? So it's moving into like these different forms. It's stretching itself, okay? So to illustrate that point, I want to talk through two films that I think demonstrate this. Both are groundbreaking in their own way, but reflecting two very different sides of Japan, okay? And a side note, both of the directors I'm about to mention worked for Makino Studio. So they both were trained under him. And so, you know...
My question is, just to go back to Kabuki, sorry, because the style, so we talked about the Wagato and the Sagoto, the rough and the soft style. Did they play with that as well in the movies?
Good question. I mean, you will get a transfer of, because actually indeed the story I'm about to mention deals with a particular type of storyline that is actually an anti-hero. So you have, which is quite unusual, right? And I don't know maybe how you would describe that, if that's soft or rough, but the samurai is no longer seen as maybe the almighty sort of, you know, perfect specimen we should all be looking at. So which changes the tone of the acting, changes the tone of like this main character we're looking at. So the first film, Orochi, translated as The Serpent, in 1925, and it's directed by Futagawa. This is the story of a samurai with noble intentions, okay? A man who goes out of his way to defend those around him with honor, but who, through misfortune and misunderstanding, is ostracized, imprisoned, and eventually broken by the world around him, and has already decided what kind of man he is, okay? And part of why this film is groundbreaking is that it marks a moment in Jidaigeki film where it breaks free of the old kabuki heavy house style, right? It is dynamic camera. So when you're talking earlier about sort of, is there cuts? Is there sort of, now is the time. Now is the time they are sort of basically going, okay, well, how are we going to make this exciting? How can we sort of bring life to this scene? And they're looking at the West as well here, right?
So they started experimenting with camera movements and close-ups and totals.
Yeah.
Total. Yeah.
Totals, yeah.
Totals.
Yeah, like, the editing starts to become more important here. Okay. Close-ups. Onagata, for example, are no longer there. Okay, so you have women playing female roles in these films.
Nice.
As well as the storyline, as I mentioned, was critical of the elite. And so critical that it had to change its name. It was originally called The Outlaw, but censors objected to a criminal being portrayed as a hero, so it was retitled Serpent. And it was considered, this film, the root of Chambara. And Chambara is the Japanese sword fighting film genre. So any samurai film you see these days is Chambara. And this is kind of the forefather of Chambara.
Okay.
Now, one of the last scenes in the film plays out with our anti-hero battling a gang of bandits and town guardsmen in a relentless attack that leaves him breathless. He's stumbling, he's exhausted. This is like where we're so the acting here is like still slightly theatrical, slightly sort of like big, but it's not formalized. He is. If you watch this, I'll put it up on the screen, but you will see him, battling against multiple assailants. He's kind of being beaten down. He's weary. He's kind of exhausted. It's like he's slowly getting knocked back, and you can see this guy just kind of like just eventually giving up. It's take the Crazy 88 and the Bride from Kill Bill. Do you remember that scene when they all jump down in the temple and they kind of come down and they fight?
Love that scene.
Now it's a crazy scene, but you're in it, right? You believe it, right? But because the world that they're in, it makes sense. And this is the same. I feel like this is the same sort of essence of that.
Maybe it was an inspiration for Kill Bill.
And I kind of feel it might have been. Might have been. The next film, which is very different, is called A Page of Madness. This is made a year later, 1926. Director called Kunigasa. You'll like this one. A Page of Madness is set inside a mental asylum. Okay.
Oh, just because it's dark and
Yes.
sad, you think
Yes.
that it's me? And I don't represent those ones. Okay. Next time when we're gonna have a Vulgo performance, we're gonna put Winnie the Pooh on stage. No. Okay.
You know what? That might sell. I don't know when the copyright ends for Winnie the Pooh.
Probably it's really
Yeah,
expensive.
probably very expensive. So Page of Madness is set in a mental asylum, and where a man takes up a job as a janitor to because he wants to rescue his wife. His wife has been incarcerated in this insane asylum. Now, as he tries to free his wife, his mind slowly slips into madness, and how they portray that in this film is through a lot of editing tricks. They use double, triple exposure. They're using fast cuts, Dutch angles, mirrors. It's also no intertitles, so the words that come up explaining what's going on, or a character speaks and they have like the little dialogue. None of that. So it's all visual. Yeah.
Whoa.
So if you don't have, and we're going to get into this in a moment, a benchy sitting next to it.
I was just about to ask you, the benchy, is it the person who is standing on stage?
Yeah.
Or
just
next
off.
to the screen,
Yeah.
off stage,
Yeah.
sorry, and almost like doing a live voiceover for the
That's
movie?
it. So all of these films I've set up to now would have had a benchy next to them. Now,
the
interesting thing about A Page of Madness is that it is trying to remove itself, and it's kind of part of this thing called the pure film movement, which we'll talk about in a second. And it's basically trying to give a more visual, visceral experience to the audience, and trying to sort of convey, it's using, it heavily borrowed from European movements like the Soviet montage and German expressionism, avant-garde, things like that. It was trying to get the audience to kind of think about things in a less of a, dramatic, where you have Orochi that is more for the people, right? It's more like, let's call it your Avengers, right? And this is art house. This is like, okay, look a bit deeper. What am I trying to say with this, obscura lighting?
It will make you think.
It will make you think. So ultimately, both films were trying to liberate Japanese cinema from the slow, stiff chains of theatrical stage plays. Orochi did it by, as I say, injecting this kind of blood-pumping human movement into a commercial film, whereas A Page of Madness did this by providing like cinema could be an art piece in itself, right? It could be pushing you to think about your sensing in a different way, plunging into the depths of the human mind.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. It sounds good.
Sounds good, right?
Is it available on YouTube?
Page of Madness is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and Orochi is, so you can watch these. Yeah.
Cool. How long are they?
Page of Madness is about an hour and a bit. It's not that super long. Orochi, similar. They're not super long. Some of these are...
So they are like proper features?
Yeah, they're features, yeah.
Yeah, because by the way, just for your knowledge, so when it comes to a movie, short movies, they are less than 40 minutes. Everything more than 40 minutes, it's considered to be a feature film.
Yeah, nice.
So,
Fact.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Now, there is a large component of these silent films that we only just brushed on, which is the benchy.
Yeah. I've heard that. I remember someone told me. Maybe it was you.
Might be me.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Because we did have a conversation about this previously. Yeah. That a lot of audience members, they went to watch the movies because of the Benji sometimes.
100%.
Right?
They were more popular than the actors and directors. Yeah. They would basically line up their film schedule to be like, who's up? Which Benji?
I would love to see a performance like that. I would like to see a movie with a Benji still.
They do that. They do still do it.
Do they?
I mean, it's like special events and the rest of it, but there is, you can watch some videos as well of them doing it. It's a really interesting hybrid of that, what theatre was, taking sort of those inspirations from classic Japanese theatre, and then going, okay, well, we're going to inject that into what is at that time modern cinema, modern film.
So cool.
Yeah,
so cool.
And nowhere else is doing this. So you might have a piano man in whatever in the West, but no one else has what we would describe as a benchy. Okay, and these guys are powerful. Okay, so they would introduce the film. There are narrators. They would do every voice of the character. They would and give the emotion, the tone. They had complete control, pretty much, over the film, which
so cool.
It's kind of cool, but also a bit scary. They also they had so much power because they had like an audience in front of them.
So the tickets, were they expensive at the time?
The benchy salaries were expensive, so I don't actually know how much people paid for a ticket, but
probably it's more expensive than a regular cinema ticket.
I mean, I think actually, I think this is the only way you could have seen a film back in Japan at that time. This is it. Like you expected a benchy, so. And the films were created with that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So when you went there,
so the filmmakers, did they provide a script for the benchy?
Yeah. Sometimes they didn't get it till late, but for a benchy, it was like, give a shit. I'm gonna do what I need to do. I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna do it, and then they were dropping jokes. I mean, you look at something like A Page of Madness, and which has no intertitles, nothing, right? It's just visual, and you would. The benchy would be like, yeah, cool, no worries. I'm just gonna roll with it, and I'm gonna make it my own. So any benchy doing it, and at the height of their success, about 1930, I think it's like about 1930, mid 1930s, there was about 8,000 benchy registered and practicing. Okay, so it's quite a bit, and about 1,000 cinemas. So right. So you would also have it sometimes. I think they had police or government officials come and watch benchy to make sure that they were not corrupting the moral fiber of society, because they had so much power with an audience.
People listened to them.
Huh?
People did listen to them.
Yeah, they listened to them. Yeah, they respected them. Yeah. So this was an interesting. By the mid 1920s.
And sometimes the benchies, they were more popular than the actual actors from the movie.
They were always more popular.
That's
for the silent era, always. Give you an example of one benchy we should mention. Is a guy called Tokugawa Musei. Now he also called the intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
He was unlike a dramatic and loud style of many narrators, he developed a restrained, erudite, benchy style that catered for the intellectual film fans, even narrating foreign films and experimental works like The Page of Madness, for example. And when things got exported over there, like the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, he would do that. So he was... Now, we're going to talk a little bit about their downfall, but he's a successful story. He was a bit of a, orator. He moved into radio and became a broadcaster, and, eventually ended up on TV, I think. And he's a very, very well-known person and name in Japan. So good for him.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, my goodness. 28. We're about 2/3 through. I don't think I'm going to I think we might have to have a pause. Have a break.
Then let's take a break.
Should we take a break? Let's 2 minutes?
Take a break.
Okay, you take a break. We're going to take a break. You come back to us.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
投資は磨いて吸うから磨いて吸うから
床面ごとに最適ブラッシング磨いて吸うから
キュキュって感じ
東芝エアロサイクロン
入れるだけ1234トイレに10本2234タンクに10本
お掃除ボールでタンクやパイプも除菌洗浄フッ素コートで汚れをはじく
トイレに10本入れるだけ
3年 AB 組海沢先生おら久保田さんいや岸そこ前髪が長いそこの男子鼻毛伸びてるぞこれ
むしろカニちゃんだろ。
All right,
Are we back?
are back.
Hi, that was a lovely break.
That was such a nice coffee break.
Yeah, good.
All right, let's move on.
Where are we? I tell you where we are. We left off just introducing the Benshi as a very important component to the Japanese film industry. And I'm going to take us back a little bit. We're going to go back to about 1910 and we're going to travel through that time to about 1920s. During this time, a battle had been raging between two elements of the film industry. One would be the traditional, you could maybe call the traditional side of filmmaking, which would be, okay, a film is created with the intention of having a Benshi next to it to talk through it, and that was all understood. And then opposite that, you have the pure film movement. And the pure film movement were critics that believed that Japan was falling behind their Western counterparts, that it was still stuck in the past, and that it was still theatrical and it wasn't pushing the envelope forward enough, and that it was too heavily reliant on the Benshi's involvement instead of pushing for more dynamic editing, cutting, removing onagata, having female leads, having more realistic acting, as they would describe it then, on screen. Close-ups, for example. No one did close-ups up until this pure film movement came along. So, this is all the pure film movement wanted to do, was just push that envelope forward and tell the story with more visuals and not have the Benshi interrupt the film flow. This, however, was not the nail in the coffin for the Benshi. Realistically, there was confrontation and there was this kind of back and forth between directors and actors, and fundamentally, though, it was still a silent film. So you still had, and the institution, the fundamental bedrock and the infrastructure of the film industry had the Benshi in it.
So we still had the Benshi, and the filmmakers, they were pushing the boundaries. They were creating more artistic or more visually appealing movies. I think it sounds to me that this is the time when the most amazing Benshi involved cinematography came out.
So you've eventually got Benshi beginning to kind of understand and appreciate what the filmmakers are doing. Instead of, when they first started doing it and the Onagata, for example, also had a problem because they were losing their jobs, right? So they weren't able to play the female characters. Yes. And so the Benshi were also on the side of Onagata because, they were into the sort of, they could see the changing tides. If they're standing there, they've got the power, they can say what they want and go, oh, what a terrible performance by this actress. They could be probably pretty mean about it. However, that was fine. People eventually got on, right? They eventually found a way to kind of coexist, and the Benshi established a little bit more of a way to work with the new sort of editing techniques and be less sort of worried about being in control of the film itself.
I see.
The nail in the coffin.
Sound.
100%.
Makes sense.
Yep. Now, to give you some context, The Jazz Singer, 1927, directed by Alan Crosland, was the first Western feature film to synchronize sound. It wasn't all sound, as in, they did still have intertitles, but it was synchronizing. Most commercially successful, anyway. Japan didn't really catch up until the 1930s, so the late 1930s, right? So it gives you, an idea about how long and how tight a grip tradition and the Kabuki had on the film industry at that time, right? And how much people were kind of, having to fight against this.
Again, Kabuki is the IMAX of theatre, so it makes sense.
Even today, it's pulling an audience. So
they loved it.
Yeah. But the audience loved the live interaction of the Benshi, right? So, it wasn't an easy sell. They were also heavily unionized. They did strikes. But eventually, about 1936, production companies...
They protest.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they protest. They walked out. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And to give you one person to mention which is Heigo Kurosawa. So you might know the name Kurosawa from Japanese films. Very famous, very
Rings a
important.
bell.
He's going to be featured heavily in the next episode on this.
Mm-hmm.
His older brother, Heigo Kurosawa, was a benshi. So, yeah. So he introduced Akira Kurosawa to all of these films, like, you know, all of, you know, locally made films, as well as all these Western imports that were coming in. So you can see these influences imprinted into Kurosawa's films in the future. You know, as well, and where we talked about sort of maybe a happy ending for the benshi before, unfortunately with Heigo, he took his own life in 1933 because of the industry drying up for him. So, and this happened to a lot of benshi at the time.
Oh God.
Yeah, so you had a lot of benshi who just could not keep up or change, you know, their direction.
But they were amazing actors.
Well, this
so
is
how come
right.
they didn't?
Well, you know, the work wasn't there, and you also have the timeline between sort of like, you know, if we took our chap Tokugawa.
Mm-hmm.
Now he had a very successful career. Went into broadcasting, radio, eventually TV, and
Not the Shogun, by the way.
not the Shogun. You had a very successful voice acting eventually down the line, and so this is where a lot of this comes from as well. This is kind of history. But the industry changed so much so quickly, and the jobs just dried up that you know you had. I mean, you know, benshi just, that was their life. The jobs weren't there anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, not great. So, coupled with the pure film movement and now the widespread importation of the talkies from the West, so a hell of a lot of films were imported in, and then you start beginning the homegrown creations, the benshi began to dissolve. The impact was devastating, with many taking their own life, as I say, and Heigo Kurosawa being a very notable figure from that episode. What we should mention also is Kinoyo Tanaka, who was an actress and director. Reason we should mention her is because she appeared in the Japanese first successful talkie, The Neighbor's Wife and Mine, in 1931. Weirdly, also about jazz. I guess it was pretty popular back then, jazz.
It's the 1930s.
Yeah. So it makes sense. She was incredibly important actress of the Golden Age, over 250 films, 50 years of work, and became the second Japanese woman to direct a feature film, but pretty much the first to direct a commercially successful feature film. So, go on.
It's good to hear that after No and
A lot of men.
Kabuki, yes, a lot of men, and now they give platform for female directors and actresses.
This now brings us into the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
And the 1930s for Japan brought political violence and instability. And by the decade's end, the instability had hardened into something else entirely. Censorship, propaganda, and a government with complete control of what could and couldn't be filmed. So where you had this kind of freedom before of experimentation, of Western imports, you start...
History repeated itself again.
Exactly, right? But before the grip closed, Japan's cinema had been a cauldron, as I say, right? It had cultural influences from Western, and also from its own theatre, from its own stories, and pushing those boundaries. A and always touching the past, right? And this is the interesting dynamic for the 20th century for Japanese film. Now, to do a quick explainer. In 1932, May 15th, a group of armed, uniform-clad officers launched a coordinated attack across Tokyo. This was for various ultra-nationalistic ideas and ideologies, coupled with the country's current economic problems, right? So they were frustrated people, and they were lashing out, and they successfully shot and killed the Prime Minister at the time. And the reason why we're going to bring up Charlie Chaplin is because they also planned to kill Charlie Chaplin, who was in the country at the time.
Charlie Chaplin
was in the country at the time, and he was going to be assassinated by this group. But
what was their problem?
So what they wanted to do was stir up. They wanted a war. They wanted to inflame Hollywood and Britain. And Charlie Chaplin was a representative of both places, right? So why not? Why he's over here?
We will talk about Charlie Chaplin later on when it comes to America, because the British line, it wasn't that clear.
Yeah.
But
either way.
Yeah.
He was fortunately at a sumo wrestling match with the Prime Minister's son at the time, so he was not assassinated. Good for him, right? This failed in terms of their goal of changing the government, or whatever they wanted to do. Right, they didn't get it, and they were imprisoned. They were given very light sentences because what they were doing was speaking to the people of the time. Right, they were looked at as more like
they influenced.
Yeah, like not heroes, but like they were protesting against a government that wasn't trusted, I guess.
Yes.
The problem with that is, after that, this succession of national unity came in, and cabinets were dominated by military generals and admirals, which paved the way to censorship of the 1930s, basically. And this brings us to 1939, which is the Motion Picture Law. This was legislation that gave the government authority over the industry. The state gained the power to pre-censor scripts, mandate the hiring of specific directors, and force exhibitors to screen government-approved documentation. So we've a lesson as old as time, right? We've seen this all before. Okay, so you start just basically getting films that are very specific to what the government want, which usually revolved around Bushido. So the sense of self-sacrifice, death before dishonor, all these propaganda values.
Being a martyr.
Pushing this ideology.
Mm-hmm.
By 1942, the government established a total monopoly over the film distribution. If a movie didn't perfectly mirror the military's shifting wartime goals, such as celebrating kamikaze pilots, things like that, it just didn't get distributed.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
wow.
Instead of this big, booming,
creative art, it became propaganda machine.
And the film distribution became, instead of thousands, it became to hundreds. Like, you did the film production just, minimized.
Yes.
So two films I'd like to just talk through to illustrate this period.
Mm-hmm.
The first is The 47 Ronin, which we've mentioned a couple of times now.
Yes.
Very important cultural story. And it's a real story. It really happened. And this was by a director called Mizoguchi. Now, Mizoguchi, we're also going to mention in the next episode. Very important director. But it's complicated because Mizoguchi is considered a humanist and a proto-feminist. So a lot of his films were kind of supportive of women, and looking at the human being, the human and the spirit, and all this kind of stuff. However, he was commissioned by the state to create this film during wartime. So 1941, he did this. It was released. Now, it's kind of debated why and for what reason and where was his political sort of ideology, right? The debate is whether he was pretty much trying to save his studio, because the only way you could make films is through the government, and if they supported what you're doing. So if he was like, they were like, we want to make this 47 Ronin film, he would be like, yep, I'll do it. Just give me the money, I'll make it. And the reason why you can look at this film and kind of say, okay, maybe this was like a silent protest of sorts, because it is 4 hours long. It is long. It is so long, and it's meditative. It's not like like this story involves.
Actually, we do have movies that they are slightly longer.
Yeah, but man,
For example, Bela Tars,
sure, but
Satan Tango, 7 hours
yeah,
long.
yeah,
Beautiful
beautiful
piece of art.
But you gotta strap in.
But it's
You gotta
it's,
strap in.
you need to spend the whole day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
This-
so 4 hours long.
4 hours long. The story revolves around a mishap between two lords, and then the one lord has to commit
Suicide.
Yeah, suicide. His samurai retainers then become ronin, and they want to take revenge on the lord that forced their lord to commit ritual seppuku.
Bloody.
Yeah,
Dark.
should be, and it is. But all of that honor and all of that self-sacrifice, all of that was kind of played down in this. It kind of made probably intentionally, right? And the government hated it, but they still had to, because they paid for it and all the rest of it. They also gave him a prize, and we're like, okay, fine, whatever.
Just take it and leave.
And to give you context on that, this was released on the December 1st, 1941. The attack on Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, 1941. So Japan had just entered the chat at that point. Okay, so this was all gearing up to put some national pride and push everybody into that ideology.
Wow.
Now, a more obvious demonstration of propaganda was the 1942 film The War at Sea from Hawaii to Malaya. This was commissioned to celebrate Pearl Harbor attack. So this was 1942. And at the time, it became the highest grossing film in Japan, which is pretty impressive. And the special effects in it were so impressive that the American intelligence thought that they were actually using...
It was a documentary.
They thought they were using real footage of the attack, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and the special effects guy who created it was the same guy who co-created Godzilla.
What? That's so cool.
Iji Tsubo Ryu. Sorry,
Okay.
I completely wrong.
So later on, he co-directed Godzilla.
Well,
the
co-created,
original.
Yeah, he did. Again, another daddy of special effects.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, we'll obviously get into Godzilla in a bit.
Yeah.
Hello, buddy. So.
I don't know if you can see it, but we do have a little Godzilla.
It's a little
over
mascot.
here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, but so to close. On August 6, 1945, the first bomb fell on Hiroshima. 3 days later, the second fell on Nagasaki. Within days, Japan surrendered, its people bloodied, its cities ash, its economy in ruins, its entire cultural identity now held delicately in the balance. And yet, as the first half of the 20th century had already shown, again and again, Japan's relationship to destruction was never simply tragic. At the philosophical core of Shinto and Buddhist beliefs sit two ideas: Mujo, impermanence, the understanding that nothing lasts, and Tokawaka, eternal renewal. The conviction that what ends can always begin again, made anew. Nowhere is this written more literally in the Japanese culture than at the Grand Ishi Shrine, where every 20 years the entire structure is dismantled and rebuilt from scratch. Not because it has decayed, but because renewal is the point. Destruction isn't the opposite of continuity, it is continuity. The Japanese film industry had been living this ritual since its very first frame, always on the edge of destruction, and always somehow rebuilding into something new. The Benchi destroyed by sound, the studios destroyed by the earthquake, filmmakers handicapped by the censors. Each collapse didn't end the story, it cleared the ground for the next one. And that'll be part 2.
Okay. A lot to digest.
Yeah!
Beautiful, mate. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening. This was a quite extended
extended
episode,
edition, yeah.
So sorry about that. But yeah, we hope we will see you soon as well. And bye.
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 Get out of here.
Leave.
Stop following us.
Ah!